Alright, I am going to get ready to put the first motor back together. I'm going to start with my right hand motor. I have my 3 new bushings. I bought a new cork gasket. This motor, the gasket's still usable. On the other motor, it broke. It tore in one spot, so I just bought new gaskets. I've cleaned everything, make sure I have my shims or my thin spacers. There's 3 of them, just like the other motor. There's 3 on one side, 2 on the other. Pay attention to which way you take them out. There is an interesting thing to note about these screws on these motors. I snapped one off. Not on this motor, on my other one. I snapped one off and it was interesting. This is actually a tri-lobe screw, which means it's triangular. And the purpose of this screw is it's basically a self-tapping screw, like you see a sheet metal screw that would be self-tapping. Although this is made for softer materials, and these housings I believe are aluminum. So I have my lithium grease. I'm gonna pack everything with the lithium grease. I have some anti-seize, and I'm gonna use the anti-seize because of these screws. So to prevent having more snapped bolts, if I ever had to go back in here, I'm just gonna use some anti-seize. I use a high temperature anti-seize since these are right by the engine. And we all know these engines get hot, and it's hot under that hood. All right, let's do it. So this is the right hand. This is the right hand side. So I'm gonna break free my motor again so that I can get my right hand gear in. There's that lip. This is, or should I say, the gears don't go all the way through. They stop on one side. You have to be careful. One of the videos I watched, I watched all the videos actually, were all the popular ones. Most of the people showed the left-hand motor. The left-hand motor has no issues disassembling it. The cover's on the front. The cover on the left-hand motor is on the outside. You can get at the bolts real easy, which means the gear comes out this way. The gear comes out of the left side without any issue. They don't show you the right side or even mention it or tell you what you have to do. Now, the other video I watched from the do-it-yourself guy, actually, my opinion, had the best video. He showed real-life problems. I'm guessing by watching his video that he started with the right side, and he realized he needed to take this worm gear apart. Well, he did it to both sides, not knowing that you only have to do it to the right side. And he broke screws off as well. So I would not recommend doing anything you don't have to do to these screws, or you're gonna run into problems. It's not gonna be easy to fix these. And if you buy a used one off the internet, it could still have seized bolts. So I broke it free, just enough for the worm gear to move. Let's assemble this bad boy. All right, so I've got my coffee. I'm in my chair. To start assembly, I am going to need my gear, these 3 bushings, the shaft and carrier, and make sure you clean everything really well. You're gonna put grease back in there. You want all the contamination out of there, or it's gonna get stuck in the grease. A nice thick white grease. I'm gonna just throw it in here. I'm gonna pack this inside. Let's talk a little bit about these rebuild kits. Knowing what I know now, I would have probably bought a kit. There is somebody on eBay that sells, actually I think he might be one of the only guys that sells these gaskets. Well, he sells everything. He sells the bushings, he sells the gaskets, he sells an OEM plastic gear grease, he sells plastic gears, but he sells everything in different stages. I think you can buy a rebuild kit with the 3 bushings, the gasket, without the gear or with the gear. Now there's also brass gears out there. Guys, I do not think I would recommend a brass gear under any circumstance. I don't even understand why somebody went that route. This gear is 25 years old. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And this is just my gear. I caught my problem early, so no damage to the gear happened. Absolutely, people are going to have failed gears. It's because they let it go too long. This worm gear is made out of metal. You don't want metal on metal. Not in this setup. They made these parts out of plastic so that the weakest link would break and not damage the worm gear. Putting brass in, the whole idea is that it's going to last forever. Guys, this has lasted 25 years and it's perfect. Metal on metal is a bad idea, and especially a soft metal like brass. And there we go. I'm going to push it all the way in. There we go. Now, there's 2 of these spacers or shims. I would not recommend completely separating this from here. As you saw in one of the videos, there's a bearing on the end of this worm screw that pushes up against the set screw. That's an adjustment to keep the gear from not walking. But there's brushes in there. All motors have brushes, and there's 2 springs. You don't want to mess with any of that if you don't have to. It's just more work. There's no reason to take it all the way off. You can get it apart enough to put this back in. I'm going to pack the gear with grease. And then I'm going to also put some on the worm gear. Let's put this together. Put my spacers. I found putting the spacers on here makes more sense. Tip this up a little bit. Okay, I'm in. So in that video I was talking about where the guy broke some bolts off, he actually broke bolt off on this cover here. This is, so it can happen anywhere. I broke a bolt off on the actual housing cover. He broke a bolt off where these 2 connect, which is another reason why you don't want to loosen the left side motor. You don't have to. You know, you're taking a chance of breaking a bolt. I didn't pay attention if he broke his left or right side. It'd be a darn shame if it was the left side, because that's the side you don't have to take apart. Don't over tighten. And I'm back in business. Everything's working. Okay, so that's done. I should probably put anti-seize on these as well. So maybe I'll tighten one side, completely remove the other, so that I can anti-seize the screw. Again, it is a steel screw going into an aluminum housing, and this again is a tri-lobe screw. Okay, it doesn't require much. Okay, I went and got a wire brush. I could see this bolt started to oxidize. This is one that, you know, if I did this repair a couple years later, this might have snapped off. So when you use anti-seize, you want to get everything clean. My other bolt, you know, it looked good, so I didn't clean it like this one. This one has visible oxidization on it, so I'm gonna wire brush that off. I'm gonna get some coffee as well. I'm gonna anti-seize this bolt. Put this bad boy back in. And again, talking about these tri-lobe screws or bolts, if you break one off or if you lose one, it doesn't matter. It's an 832 thread. Any 832 bolt that's less than 500 thou in thread or less than a half inch of thread length is going to work in here. I'm going to just snug it a little bit. Definitely not going to over torque this. I'm just going to go with just fingers. Okay, I'm good. I'm leaving it there. I'm going to just go around here and pack a little bit of grease around the outside edge. Now there's 3 spacers or shims on this side. I'm just gonna go ahead, I'm just gonna put them on there. Make sure you clean everything. I've got my new gasket. The gaskets were $3 each. I bought 4 gaskets since I have 2 cars, so if I ever have to do my 95, I'll already have the gaskets on hand. I'll just have to buy the 3 bushings. That car makes no noise at all. Be very careful with these gaskets. They are thin. Now even the original gasket, when I compare it, it's also a thin cork. Slide it over. These bolts look good, but since I have my wire brush here, I'm just going to hit them really quick. Okay, so now I have my left side. Again, my 3 Torx bolts, my stop, my broken roll pin, my 2 tri-lobe screws that I am going to put back in, and here's the head off my broken one. You can see all the oxidization on there. My 3 new bushings, my spacers. Remember, the left side motor, we do not have to take these apart. So this is my left motor. This is the screw that broke off right here. So what I was able to do is, I'm lucky. I have the resources that I can fix that. So I went in and I welded a nut onto the top of the screw and then extracted it. It worked out good. Then I just chased the threads with a 832 tap. I'm gonna reuse my tri-lobe bolts that haven't broken. I'm gonna anti-seize them. And in the spot that did break, I have an 832 socket head cap screw with a rubber washer. I'm squeezed all the way in. My gasket's nice and sealed.